When you arrived at the office again, Baxter was already comfortably seated and scanning over his notebook. He glanced up from it at the sound of the door opening.
Hello, folks.
Welcome back. What's on the menu?
Baxter smirked, but Cove answered with complete earnestness.
A lot of things. Delicious.
With all of the work, planning, and effort a thing of the past, you were having your final appointment with Baxter. I can't believe it! We're getting married! The two of you situated yourselves on the purple couch in your normal spots, though Cove was unable to treat the visit as anything near normal. His legs had stiffened from nervousness so badly, the bend in his knees was like the snap of two branches. He nearly fell onto the cushion. Baxter, on the complete opposite end of the comfort spectrum from Cove, smiled with a natural ease. Well, obviously, he's not the one getting married.
Well then. This is the last time we're likely to see each other until the day of your wedding. Are you feeling prepared?
I am, but I'm not sure Cove is. Maybe Cove is, but I'm not. I think we'll avoid those. After how many meetings and appointments we went through, definitely. Yes? No? I'm not sure. You know what? I remember, like, yes, there's gonna be some uncertainty, because it's just, there's so many moving parts that you're just like, I hope I didn't forget anything important. Actually, speaking of, like, wedding disasters, it wasn't too bad of a disaster, but the day of the wedding, I forgot to bring my tiara to the hairdresser when I got my hair done. So that was a little mini disaster. Doug was able to take time from getting dressed to bring it to the hairdresser. My maid of honor got the tiara from him so that he didn't see me, I didn't see him. I got my tiara. I think that was the biggest disaster that happened all day, which is very, very small. So, you know, as far as things going wrong, I took it. That was fine. But I remember, like, okay, I haven't forgotten to do anything. Everything's laid out, blah, 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 blah. Oh, the nerves. But I'm going to say yes. Cove didn't react whatsoever. Not to Baxter or you. He was frozen solid. Baxter ran his hands along the inside edge of his jacket and placed his most encouraging smile on his face.
To be honest.
In all honesty, you've both done beautifully. Your wedding will be an event to be proud of, and I'll be there to make certain it flows smoothly. All you need to do now is enjoy yourselves.
Each line Baxter spoke chipped away at the frosted shell around Cove until it cracked. Your fiancé replied in a small voice.
Thank you.
Wow, thanks.
No.
Having broken the ice, Baxter easily shifted back into work mode. He touched the tips of his fingers to a pile of papers on the desk to his side.
I've got the details for the hotel for you here. I was able to book 2 standard single-bed rooms for you and your parties to use to get ready in. The hotel is minutes from the ceremony venue, so you won't need to make a trip out there the morning of.
Not bad.
Thanks, Baxter. You're good at this.
Cove's admittance was almost embarrassed. He scratched at his cheek and shared a look with you. You remember how hard of a time the two of you had getting a room when you had come into Sunset Bird for your mom's anniversary. It was an ordeal. Cove chuckled, knowing you were reminiscing over the same experience. Baxter accepted the compliment earnestly, without prying. He leaned an elbow against his chair's armrest and propped his head up against his hand.
Glad to hear it.
I do strive to be.
He continued to relax, following up his prior motion with the cross of his legs.
And I very much appreciate your great patience with the series of questions throughout this experience. I do still have yet one more topic I'd like to discuss. When you leave here, the wedding planning is over. Do either of you have an opinion on seeing your beloved before the ceremony?
That was not something Cove had considered. He didn't have words to back up the hasty interruption. Baxter smoothed it over by elaborating.
I know some couples follow a tradition of completely cutting contact in the lead up to the wedding, so it's a reuniting when they come together for the ceremony. Others stay apart physically, though communicate over the phone, and there are those who don't participate in that whatsoever and stay with one another.
This time, Cove gave himself space to consider it, letting the concept sink in.
I don't know.
I mean, I didn't have plans to be away from Molly. You know, I like being around her when that's an option.
Aw, Cove.
But I guess maybe we could do that? If it's a special thing for weddings.
He laughed breathily and sent Baxter a question of his own.
Are you gonna make fun of me for being clingy now?
Never.
Nah, he would never make fun of you for being clingy. You knew just how much Baxter meant that. Cove, however, didn't have the same context.
Oh, okay.
Good, people shouldn't make fun of him for that. You really should change your stance. Teasing Cove is fun. No, you know what? I appreciate that Baxter respects that about Cove. It's good. It's really good. That's lucky for the both of us. I'm clingy too. You're very sweet, Baxter, but he's definitely clingy. You patted Cove on the shoulder reassuringly. You had to laugh at Cove calling himself out for that. Now, you know what? Hands up accountability. I'm also a clingy person, so this is fine. That's lucky for the both of us. I'm clingy too. In disbelief, Cove's eyes bounced back and forth between you and your planner. He was able to express his want to always be around you, and no one in the room had given him a hard time for it. Oh, Cove! Sweetheart! I feel so bad now for all the times that people gave you a hard time. Cove absolutely beamed at that revelation. It was a pre-wedding miracle! I love this man. You were charmed by both his overt affection for you and by how cute he genuinely was. But you made an effort to not be entirely distracted, and you gave an answer to the question at hand. Oh, man. So, yeah, we had like a mix for my wedding. Doug and I met up and we had breakfast. We got up early, had breakfast together, and then I basically left from breakfast to go get my hair done. And he left to go get ready. And then got a phone call. Did I call? No, I was getting my hair done. So my maid of honor called Doug. And he went back to the room where I was going to get dressed in. Did he do it? No, my mother-in-law got it. Oh my goodness, it's so long ago. My mother-in-law got the tiara, gave it to my fiance at the time. He drove it down, and yeah. So we had a mix because we did technically meet up that day. You know what? Let's be clingy together. We'll do it. Cove, I wanted to share a room with you.
Yes, definitely. Obviously. I'm glad you asked, cause, yeah, I am a little clingy.
Cove shuffled the balls of his feet against the carpet, all the while glancing over at you bashfully. Dong. I mean, he already was like, I didn't have plans to be away, so I think it's good. You held on to his sweet gaze, feeling grateful knowing that you wouldn't have to go without that anytime soon. Off to the side, Baxter watched the two of you from his spot on the office chair. The fondness in his expression for you and Cove had tipped past his usual professional distance. Aw, Baxter. Not wanting to ruin the moment, he spoke in a soft voice.
Perfect.
Aw, that is a soft voice.
Very good. Everything is settled then.
From there, the rest of the meeting was spent going over final details and the whole plan step by step. Baxter wanted to make sure you were on the same page and prepared for the events ahead. He shared amusing anecdotes of past weddings he'd planned. Some highlighted actual potential pitfalls you could intentionally avoid, and others were one-in-a-million debacles. The most unbelievable was the story of a particular orchard ceremony from the year before. The stage was set with flowers, a walkway, seating, and wooden arch at the end. He was looking on in a final survey, primed for the guests to arrive, when an out-of-control truck with a back end full of apples drove straight through. The driver was unharmed when he got the truck to stop, and the couple were still married, albeit in a much simpler arrangement, but Baxter distantly remembers the almost comedic surrealness of it. Seeing a completed wedding and then having it flattened back to the ground in the blink of an eye was something he never expected or hoped to experience. That poor couple. Kudos to them for, still going through, just all our plans have been flattened in a blink of an eye. While the planner chuckled in recollection, Cove leaned over to ask if you thought there'd be any reason a fruit truck might have to be at your venue. You were pretty sure there wasn't. The stories and laughter continued until the end of the appointment. It reminded you of the final day of class before summer vacation. Technically, you were still in school, but everyone was eager for the fun to begin. Then goodbyes were exchanged as usual, with promises to see each other soon like there had been every time you visited. However, when you left the office, you had to wonder if you would ever go back there again. When you saw Baxter next, it would be at the wedding location. Maybe you would return someday, if you and Cove decided to renew your vows and needed a planner again. Or maybe you try a different planner next time. Ouch. You know what? Maybe you could visit as friends. Maybe. Maybe. Under a wide starry sky, you and Cove hopped into his car to head back. Despite having done it many times before, it felt completely different that time. After the click of seatbelts being snapped into place, there was a silence in the cab. None of the boisterousness from minutes ago had come along with you. Cove's expression was pensive as he rounded the curve and got the car out onto the street. A gentle rumbling resonated over you from wheels rolling across tarmac. That was the only word he managed to articulate before his mouth clamped up tight again. He had an internal struggle made visible, and ultimately he made enough peace with it to finally smile.
Right now, I have a lot going in my head. You probably guessed that. There's so much I want to say to you about us and what's happened, all of this, but it would probably make more sense if I said it during the wedding, right?
His voice dropped to a complete whisper, but his grip on the steering wheel intensified.
It's so close now.
Cove took in a deep breath through his nose, allowing his fingers to loosen again. That was followed by him answering his own question.
Don't worry about it.
Pretend this didn't happen.
Dang it, I'm so curious now. Meh. Whine and disappointed protest. Hey, always. I can wait for you.
Thanks. You're always nice to me.
Of course. That warmed you up inside. Nothing felt better than knowing he could rely on you.
But there's a lot of other things I'm thinking about too. Like the fact that these are the last moments of our lives together not being married. After this, I'll be your husband and you'll be my wife. Unbelievable.
I love you, Cove.
I love you too.
Twisting in your seat, you let the side of your face rest against the back of the chair. You rested there at the end of such a long project, watching your almost husband as he continued to drive ahead. The two of you were moving forward, full of hope and anticipation for the very near future. After days, weeks, years of waiting to commit yourself to the love of your life, the morning of your wedding arrived. It was a realization that hit you as you laid in a dark hotel room. How did I sleep that night? I think I slept good. Yeah, half asleep, cozy. You weren't able to tell exactly how long you'd been up at that point. There'd been a lot going through your mind, and being cuddled up next to Cove hadn't helped. His shining aquamarine eyes were open. You wondered when he had woken up too. It could have been just then, or he might have been lost in his own imaginations for a while himself. But when your gazes met, you became everything he was immersed with. His hand moved from its placement against your back up to the nape of your neck and then brushed past your ear and against your cheek. Cove's fingers drifted over your skin warmly, gently, and completely steady. They flowed like a wave from a summer sea. Of course, you'd known Cove for more than long enough to be aware that this tranquility wouldn't last. Once you officially got up for the day, and you'd have to prepare for the ceremony, he would inevitably become, in the most complimentary way you could think of, a panicked mess. But, for as long as it was only you and only him hidden away together under the sheets, those worries couldn't reach him. Good. I'm glad we decided to spend this time with him then. A moment of calm before the storm. You were each other's shelter. Aw, it's so cute. It hadn't ceased to marvel you the way sharing a bed had become one of Cove's greatest sources of comfort after years of it being one of his biggest struggles. It was wonderful. In a soft voice, your very soon-to-be husband finally spoke. Stop. That's so cute.
Congratulations on your wedding.
Congratulations on your wedding. He squished his face deeper in the pillow happily.
Thank you.
I'm gonna give you a soft kiss on your nose. Mwah. Cove hummed sweetly, angling his face into the touch. It was a lovely moment to share, both mundane and incredibly special in its own way. But then Cove glanced past you into the distance and he gave a deep sigh. While bringing up a hand to pull down at the skin of his cheek, he began to whisper.
It's almost time.
You twisted your head back. Sat on the side table next to the bed was the stock standard digital clock, flashing the current hour and minute in bright red lines. Cove was right. You were going to have to get up if you didn't want to be late, or show up to your wedding in pajamas. By the forlorn look on Cove's face, he would have honestly considered standing in front of all your friends and family in pink striped shorts if it meant he could have stayed. Eventually, his eyes let go of the clock and his attention came back to you. Watching you watch him had let Cove basically read your thoughts. He developed a bent smile before speaking again.
Would it be wrong to say 5 more minutes today of all days?
And here I thought you were a morning person. Cove gave an obligatory pout before switching back to a smile. Hee. He flipped the covers up and pushed himself into a sitting position. Cove then dropped his legs down off the mattress so his bare feet were against the floor.
My party is gonna meet me in the other room. You and your party can get ready in this one.
After making it halfway up, he stalled and stared at the ceiling. You lifted yourself to be settled more upright. All right.
Yeah.
Cove's yeah wasn't directed at anything in particular. He was grasping to fill space, to buy time while he sorted his thoughts.
We're getting married. I'm going to marry you.
The gravity of the occasion fell on Cove, heavier and heavier as he vocalized it. His hands gripped the sheet as if bracing himself from the weight.
My stomach hurts.
Cove. You weren't able to say another word before he jumped from the bed and sped around the full edge of it to stand in front of you on the opposite side. But he didn't stand still, his weight shifting from his heels to the tips of his toes in an uneven rocking motion. Cove had found thoughts to share and let them out in rapid fire.
I have to go. Right now. I'm getting nervous. It's gonna get worse. But I want to do this. More than anything else.
While you had been prepared for this to happen, your heart still felt squeezed seeing it. Driven equally from fear and determination, Cove abandoned the bed completely and piled whatever he thought he might need into his hands to make a single trip across the hall. His phone, charger, water bottle, suitcase, overnight bag, a pair of shoes. All of it was pressed against his chest or thrown over his shoulders. It was an impressive feat.
Bye. I love you.
You can do it! I love you too. Cove came around the bed where you sat once more and awkwardly bent his knees down to give you a kiss. You were careful not to knock anything out of his grip as you kissed him in return. He moved away without letting himself linger on it, though it had put a grin back on his face. Cutie. Then your fiancé strode briskly over to the door, yanked it open, and exited the room, managing to hold everything in arms and himself together. This was the last time you'd see him until you both arrived at the wedding. You were traveling separately from the hotel. Yeah, that sounds about right. I will recreate that part. The room became completely quiet in an instant after Cove's whirlwind retreat. There was no point in lingering yourself, and you slipped out of the bed. Your clothes were hanging up against the door of the small hotel closet, and you went over to check the outfit. You gave your arms a good stretch, feeling pleased with the assessment. Everything felt perfect. From there, you went into the bathroom to brush your teeth and shower before anything else. Once clean and dry and half-dressed, you went back out into the main space of the hotel room. Your phone lit up with a new message and you glanced at it. The wedding party had arrived. They were in the lobby. You put your own phone down to pick up the hotel's landline. When the desk manager answered, you explained the situation and they promised to lead the group to your room. The call ended simply. A short time later, a knock vibrated through the heavy front door. You answered it right away. Liz was there with a smile to greet you. The rest of the party filed in after. Congrats and hellos were exchanged as they passed. It's really nice to see you. I had a stylist coming to do my hair. And probably everybody else's hair, please. And... So... makeup. It's funny. That reminds me. Also, I was going to not wear a lot of makeup for my wedding. I wanted to just kind of look as much as myself as possible with like a little extra, right? So I had, put on eyeliner, which I normally wear, but it was like a little thicker. And I had like gelled my eyebrows so they were like shaped nicely. But I wasn't doing blush, I wasn't doing eyeshadow, I wasn't gonna wear lipstick because Doug always told me he hated me, he hated kissing me while wearing lipstick. He's like, it tastes gross. So I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna like wear lipstick for my wedding. But my maid of honor had other plans. She foresaw my hesitance. And so she ended up putting blush on me. Some very light eyeshadow, which was nice, and also some lipstick. So poor Doug had to kiss me with lipstick. She also, I think she painted my fingernails, because I do a terrible job of like painting my nails, but she painted my fingernails for me. So shout out to my maid of honor. She worked hard that day. To recreate it, Liz will put makeup on for me. Liz knew the arrangement and would make sure it stayed on track. You and your party got right to work, changing, primping, and polishing up for the occasion. During the flurry of preparation, the stylist arrived. Liz handled that, going down to the lobby personally to lead the stylist up to the hotel room. Thank you, Liz. You got yourself tucked, zipped, and buttoned into your relaxed dress when a series of rapid but not especially loud knocks struck the door. Only a few people could come to the room without approval, and the sound was not Cove. There wasn't any of his usual notable pauses between knocks. That left one other main option, you thought, as your maid of honor went over to answer the door. Oh, hello, you. Looking nice in all black. There, on the other side, was your partner in this wedding journey, Baxter. I don't know if I like the way that's worded. I kind of wish that was worded a little bit differently. But anyway, his outfit looked as though he'd reverted back to his teenage self. It was all black. But you were aware that staff would be dressed top to bottom in dark shades to be recognizable to the guests as employees, and not as possible long-lost cousins twice removed. He offered his polite greetings of his own to you and your party.
Hello, and a very good morning to you.
Hi, good morning.
You look incredible already, but don't fret, I won't interrupt the process for long.
How are you?
I'm here to check in. Is there anything you need?
You wouldn't happen to have a Cove on you somewhere? Everything's good here. The curve of his smile pulled ever so slightly higher.
Wonderful. Though, let me add, I also came in order to keep you informed on the wedding status.
Oh? A hopeful bent came through in your tone.
Yes.
The status is, it's ready when you are. It should go off without a hitch.
That was music to your ears. You were so grateful Baxter had gone to as much effort as he had for this. With absolute earnestness, Baxter wished you well.
Take care.
I'll let you return to your preparation now.
Bye. Thanks for coming. The lighthearted mood of wedding work swept back in with no further distractions. Speaking of nails. But you know what? I have other bridesmaids here. So let's have Lee do our nails this time. My nails were... they were long. For the paint you went with a solid color. That was specifically... take a wild guess. Purple. Your party was there to get you through the whole morning of preparation. There were laughs and a few tears, all happy. There was a time investment, however, the look did eventually come together. The clothes, your hair, and makeup was all set to what had been planned for the day. You glanced down at yourself, fully dressed to get married. Oh... yeah, a little lightheaded. I do remember that. You stood in the center of the room, and after a moment to yourself, the rest of the group surrounded you. Oh, we get to see them in their bridesmaid dresses. Oh, you look beautiful in yellow. You've never looked better. That's saying something. Just saying. Ooh. Yours almost looks a little green, but very cute. Definitely suits you. You're dressed to a T. Aw, cutie Miranda. She's like, wow! Miranda looked on, completely starry-eyed and amazed. And then the moment had arrived. You didn't have to wait any longer. Your wedding was about to begin, and Cove would be there when you arrived. You took a deep, steadying breath and stepped out into the hallway. Rapidly, you made your way to the elevator and took it down to the lobby floor. It didn't take you very long to weave across the hotel lobby and exit through the front doors. Outside, you immediately spotted the rental car that was sent to bring you to the Poppy Hill. Yes, I slipped into the car and my maid of honor tucked in after me. Closing your eyes, you got comfortable and enjoyed the drive. There was plenty of legroom, 'cause you're short. I actually, how did we get to the hall? I think... I know my maid of honor didn't drive. Was it my mother-in-law? It was either my mother-in-law or my sister-in-law drove us to the hall, from what I remember. Glancing out the window, your eyebrows raised in surprise because you recognized just how far you were from the Poppy Hill. It would only be a few more minutes until everything you'd been working towards would finally come to fruition. Yeah, I remember feeling like I'm just like existing in this moment, just kind of out of body, just like, wow, things are happening all around me. It's amazing. Chewing at your bottom lip, you questioned if this really was a dream after all. Lost in thought, Liz smoothed out a few wrinkles in her outfit before glancing around the back seat. She then turned her attention to you and cracked a small, satisfied smile. Everything's already going excellently. Liz lightly bumped her shoulder into you. You teasingly rolled your eyes in response. Great work, little sis. I'm gonna give you a hug. You held onto your sister tightly. Liz sniffled and kept a firm hand on your back so you couldn't let go yet. Liz released you and waved a finger in your face. Her eyes were red-rimmed and shiny with tears. Oh, Liz. It's wild this is finally happening, but I really am happy for you and Cove. Baxter wasn't kidding earlier when he said that the hotel was near the ceremony. The trip was already over, and there wasn't another second to spare. Carefully, you exited the car, went forward, and finally took in the first sight of your ceremony. Ah, here we go! Aw, it looks beautiful! Lovely. Just lovely. We even have the beach in the background. Poppy Hill, the quite literal backdrop of your childhood, forever nestled behind the home you grew up in, and the place where you found a sad little wavy-eyebrowed boy years ago. The distant scent of the sea carried up on the wind mixed with the gentle floral fragrance from the poppies. It was a comfort you couldn't get anywhere else. The ceremony's decorations consisted only of a white arch on the crest of the hill, but it didn't need anything more than that. Your hill was perfect just the way it was.
Molly.
Your planner had immediately been informed of your arrival and came to greet you right on schedule.
Good afternoon.
How good to see you again, and so soon after the last time.
He tilted his head in your direction casually while chuckling. Your attempt to laugh along with him came out more like strangled hiccups. Your nerves still had a complete chokehold on you. Luckily, Baxter understood completely and offered a reassuring smile. Then all presence of casualness for the day left Baxter's poise. A bright fire lit up his dark eyes.
Now?
It's showtime. Let's get into our proper positions. The wedding parties are being led up to the front where they'll stand by, while guests are getting directed to open places to stand in the audience area.
Does that sound alright?
Molly, please go back further with me so you can be ready for the aisle walk. I'll send Cove over next.
On the promise of being reunited with Cove, you let yourself be led away by Baxter. You only had to hold on a little longer, then you'd get to see him. You went back down the bend, and there was an eager hastiness to your pace. A corner was turned, separating you off from the main scene.
Good luck, Molly. I'll congratulate you when it's over.
Thank you. Baxter trusted you enough to handle the rest and waved coyly over his shoulder as he left. He had to handle more of the arrangements behind the scenes so that you and Cove could have your spotlights. You stood there alone, foot tapping, resisting the urge to pace. You'd never been more grateful for how quickly Baxter worked when only a minute later you heard someone approach. At long last, what you'd been anticipating came to be. You saw him again. Oh, Cove, what do you look like? Ah! He went for the all-white look. Beautiful. Wow. Wow. You look great. I love it. Cove Holden. The last name rung especially strongly in your mind because soon it would be yours too. Yeah, he's already got tears in his eyes. Beautiful. Without a word, Cove lifted his arm for you to take. His blue eyes were crystal clear. You could see your future together sparkling within them. Seeing him like that, completely ready to marry you, was breathtaking. You wrapped your arm with his gleefully, creating a secure link. The touch coaxed one of his precious wobbly smiles onto his face, though he still couldn't say a full word. An assistant joined in only briefly to hand you the delicately crafted white poppy and lilies bouquet you had designed with Cove. You gratefully accepted it, taking hold of the base with your free hand and gripping tight. The assistant made their exit while you tried to relax by breathing in the gentle perfume of the bouquet. It was sweet and beautiful, reminding you of Cove. You peeked at him from behind the petals. He was watching you too. While waiting in the wings, footsteps, the distant chatter of a crowd, the heavy breathing of your partner, and your own heartbeat pattered in your ears. Your eyes closed as you strained to hear the cue above the rest of the noise. But there was no need. You knew the moment had arrived when everything in the distance went silent. It even felt as though your heart froze in place, not wanting to be the one thing to interrupt. The first note was struck. Cove's hold on you tightened into a trembling squeeze. And that was all you needed to move forward. You began to walk forward with the love of your life. Oh, Cove! He was right there by your side. His legs were shaking too, and from the corner of your eyes you could see his cheeks were wet with heavy tears. We gotta get to the end already. Yeah, I actually, my maid of honor was prepared. She had given me a package of tissues in case I needed them for crying, but I never ended up crying during the ceremony. I was good. Never in danger of crying, but I was smiling the entire time. You watched as his mouth opened, then closed as if he was speaking to you. Though, if he was saying actual words, they were too quiet for you to hear. The crowd was full of joyous smiles and loving glances, but no one made a move to distract you or Cove away from each other. You wouldn't have noticed if they had tried. All you were aware of in the entire world was the wonderful man holding desperately onto your arm. And how, on one of your shared strides, his knee locked and Cove stumbled. You rooted yourself in place, pulling up against Cove to keep him from falling completely. He leaned into you, and you both swayed to the side, but he stayed on his feet. Okay, we saved it. The two of you straightened yourselves out and kept going. You were equally committed to reaching the end of the aisle. It may not have been graceful, but to you, it was beautiful. And you made it. When you arrived, you loosened your hold on one another to change positions. You stood in front of him face to face. Softly, Cove's lips parted again, and finally, that time, you knew what it was. Your name.
Molly.
Hey. He lifted one hand to caress your cheek. He brought his head lower to be closer to yours, his fingers advancing further to touch the edge of your ears. I'm gonna boop ya. The delicate way he held you brought so much comfort. Full of love and gratefulness, you nuzzled against the one person who impacted you in such a way. A hush came over the crowd as the Justice of the Peace began to speak. It was time. The ceremony speech flowed over you. You listened to each word, but sentences faded out of focus the second they had passed. It was like being in a comfortable dream. There was a safe sense of distance from the world as your consciousness drifted around within it. What did break through to you were Cove's bashful gestures, shuffling feet, quivering eyes, a palatable nervous energy that was barely swallowed down. Not one single movement went by unnoticed. Before you could completely lose yourself in Cove's gaze, your attention crystallized in an instant. The Justice of the Peace had said, vows. It struck Cove as well because his knees visibly locked from underneath him. In slow motion, he began to tip backwards. You instinctually grabbed onto his wrist, pulling on his sleeves in an attempt to keep your beloved from leaning further. Numerous sets of arms rose from all around as both of your wedding parties poised themselves to catch Cove if he fell their way. Cove regained control of his legs and caught himself by anchoring back on the ball of his right foot. He kept that firmly planted. He was still so absorbed in the moment that the notion to be embarrassed by his near faint didn't take up any space in his mind. It was as if it hadn't happened, at least for Cove. The Justice of the Peace, however, lifted a brow, assessing if your groom was physically capable of completing the ceremony. For all his trembling, Cove stood stiffly, a pillar that could not be moved. It was enough to appease your Justice of the Peace into continuing.
The couple has chosen to prepare their own vows, and they will share them now. Cove Holden, please begin.
He took in a long breath through his nose. After so much build-up to the wedding and all the effort that it took to create it, this was the final hurdle for him, articulating his deepest feelings about you out loud. Cove looked into your brown eyes, searching for the words he needed. You waited, impressing as much encouragement as you could into your gaze. Finally, Cove began his vows.
Molly.
We met when we were 8 years old. And, well, I wanted to run away to Nevada somehow that first summer I moved into the neighborhood. Truthfully, I planned to do it before my dad and I had even made it to Sunset Bird. It didn't matter what it was going to be like. How could it ever be okay? But I saw you the first day I was there, and nothing went the way I thought. You changed everything in my life.
He sunk lower into himself sheepishly and offered a goofy grin.
Well...
I did still make an attempt in my child mind genius, but it was just gonna be for a visit. And you came to find me. You tracked me down all the way to the end of the town. You were the person I needed when I was so little and so lonely, and you still are the one I need right now. You and me are a couple of rotten eggs forever.
Every far-off image playing out in his mind brought further joy to Cove's features. He laughed nostalgically.
You'd pick my side over your own sister, and put up with me even when I'd be pretty selfish. You were there for me when I was actually upset.
Thank you.
I got to have a childhood thanks to you. You didn't let me lose it all because I was sad. I had someone I could make these memories I cherish with. Making sandcastles, watching the clouds, catching fireflies, and everything else. But then puberty happened and so many things seemed harder than before. I'm definitely glad you were around to help me survive it all. Especially my, in hindsight, painfully obvious crush on you. That felt unbearable to me, and I bet it was probably frustrating to everyone who was watching, too. Thank God that hormonal nightmare didn't screw things up for me.
Genuine relief came out from Cove in a sigh.
Oh, but I don't know how I was supposed to act normal when you'd look at me so nicely with such beautiful eyes.
Oh. He began to get taken into them as he spoke it, his own eyes growing hazy and his smile wobbling. Cove shook his head to force himself out of the self-inflicted trance.
That was the time I started sneaking out to visit you through the window. I wanted to be with you when I was happy, or when something was wrong. I couldn't stay away. Lucky for me, you didn't mind spending your days or nights in my company.
With a light touch of wistfulness, Cove recalled experience after experience from those years. I'm just imagining the parents in the audience being like, he did what now?
Going on trips together, big ones and small ones. Just hanging around our houses in the neighborhood, talking about who we were as people, playing cards. And that time there was a sun shower. We'd stick together during parties, and you could even make it fun for someone as socially awkward as I am.
As he continued to reminisce, he chuckled adorably.
Well...
And I started getting closer with your family, too. Well, at least your mom's. Elizabeth wasn't exactly interested in being good friends when we were teens. I appreciate that you always put up with my parents and their wild plans, by the way.
I remember.
I can still remember how badly I wanted to be grown up as an awkward teen. Then suddenly we graduated high school and it really was time to be an adult. Getting my first job, taking my first long drive without parents, accepting how small our little town was in the grand scheme of things. Just trying to figure out what I was even going to do with my life. I was lost, and all I wanted was to make sure I didn't lose what mattered when things had to change. Most of all, you. You were my special someone. You were the first person I was able to open up to about my sexuality, when I finally knew for sure what that was. And you were the one who would tell me when I was wrong.
His speech of all that he treasured about you went on in an uninterrupted stream. He couldn't stop himself.
I could talk to you about anything. Like the accident when I got my scar. I knew you would understand. And as mundane and drudging adult stuff could be, I had a source of relief from it because you had been around. You let me have tastes of your food, and you always gave the best gifts. How many crazy things did we get through over the years? A lot, and right from the start thanks to Dad and his master plan.
Thanks for waiting for me.
And you lived with how long it took for me to be able to do anything romantic.
Hey, back at you.
I was feeling a lot, and didn't do great at managing it. But I was so clingy, too. I never wanted to be apart then. I think I'm a little more of a big boy about it now. Maybe? You just...
He at long last stopped to breathe before his emotion-driven attempt to convey himself continued in full force.
You make me happy in ways no one else ever could. My dream came true when I got to be your actual for-real boyfriend. And, well, a lot has happened, huh? We're definitely adults. I fell in love with you. We're at our own wedding.
It's okay.
We made it through it all. All the months and months growing up, and through making this day happen. Though with how nervous I was, I think I might have worried the planner that I would convince you to elope just to get away from it all. But you breezed past the pressure like it was nothing. I love your sense of humor. You're such a charming human being.
Aw.
It was the happiest moment of my life when you accepted my proposal. Until now, anyway. I couldn't believe you wanted to be with me as much as I wanted to be with you. I don't want to try to imagine how many tears you've wiped away from me in all these years. You helped me have the confidence to grow into a man, and you can still make me feel like a kid again. With you, nothing ever really ends. It just begins again in a new way. And basically, what I'm trying to say is, no matter how hard I try, I can never thank you enough for being mine and letting me be yours.
Cove wept heavily, no longer able to stay above the wave of emotions that opening himself up so fully had wrought.
I love you.
So much, Molly. And
He futilely wiped a sleeve against his eyes. Every tear the fabric caught was immediately replaced.
those are my vows. I don't know how you're supposed to end them. I hope you'll marry me.
After all that, Cove, I love you so much. I can't stand it. I've got so many cavities. If I had heard all of that, I probably would be crying.
Thank you, Cove. Molly, you may say yours.
The justice of the peace had all but disappeared from your mind. All that you had been aware of was Cove. But that request couldn't be ignored. Now you would have to take on the endeavor of explaining everything Cove was to you and everything he'd been to you throughout knowing him almost your entire life. You chose to say, oh gosh. Oh man, what do I even say? Cove, all I want is to tell who you are to me. You're my beloved crybaby, a wonderful man, my precious ocean boy. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You're my Cove. Oh my goodness. And I'm the luckiest person in the world that I get to say that.
Oh my god.
Cove covered his face with trembling hands. He was murmuring, crying, and all around about to pass out again. Your justice of the peace nodded contently, accepting those vows as your sworn oath to your very nearly husband. I don't get to say more. He had so much to say to me. Oh my goodness, I wanted to say more.
Cove Holden, do you take Molly Waverider to be your lawful wedded wife?
He let his hands fall, ready to face you directly. Cove shaking, dripping wet eyes stays locked to yours. And with the confidence of a man who'd been waiting for this moment for years, he answered with complete surety.
I do.
Wow. It was absolutely heart-stopping, but your turn to respond had come.
And do you, Molly Waverider, take Cove Holden to be your lawful wedded husband?
I do! What he said. I do. Cove's smile was radiant, and his tears were constant. You'd sincerely made him happier than anything ever had. Your maid of honor and Cove's best man stepped forward. They each held out a small box that contained a wedding band. Cove's hand shook as he reached for the tiny treasure chest. With a focused furrow to his brow, he accepted the silver ring and the blue sapphire sparkled gorgeously in the light. You gladly offered your hand to Cove. He cradled it gently in one of his own. For a few seconds, all he could do was stare at your skin. Cove was so still for a moment, but then he used his free hand to bring the band towards your fingertip. Wow. Wow! Look at it! Look at our hands! Oh, what a beautiful ring. It's beautiful. Oh, I love it. He carefully slid the ring to its proper place on your finger. Your gaze locked onto it, utterly amazed. Swallowing thickly, Cove raised his hand out for you. You held it in return and brushed your thumb across his palm. It was your turn. With that, you retrieved the matching ring from its box. It slid onto Cove's finger beautifully. He gasped under his breath, fixating on the ring. You tenderly squeezed his hand, and Cove finally met your eyes again. He held your gaze with an electrifying stare. You were in awe of the whole moment.
Then, by the power vested in me by the state of California, I pronounce you husband and wife. You can now kiss.
Cove's knees may have started knocking together once more, but his gaze was nothing but eager. You're ready to kiss Cove on the cheek. A loving smooch. It's funny, me and Doug will tell this story, but we thought we had a normal kiss. It didn't feel long. We even had the whole ceremony videotaped. Our kiss was not that long, but when we kissed, people in the audience were like, ooh. We're like, huh? So we broke the kiss early. And we watched it back and we were just like, huh? Anyway, his lips brushed against yours ever so sweetly. He indulged in the touch, caressing your cheeks at the same moment. You leaned into the touch welcomely. The beautiful flowers of your bouquet tickled against your skin as Cove's body pressed it up against you. After, your faces shifted away just a hair's breadth so you could see one another fully. His expression was wholly adoring, and you could still feel his warmth lingering. The crowd erupted with cheers and applause around you. Yay! Giddy, you ducked your head towards Cove's shoulder and laughed. Peeking over at Cove, you realized that he was barely paying any attention to the jubilance around you both. Instead, his gaze was solely fixated on you. He scooped you into his arms. Ah. My husband could never. But Cove is a giant, so maybe? Let's hold hands. Let's hold hands. It's okay. You interlaced your fingers with his and took a deep, steadying breath. His skin miraculously seemed to blush even redder at that. You went down the aisle gleefully. As you passed by your friends and family, you caught several thumbs up, proud nods, and cheery waves. Some were even still clapping. Sniffling, your vision threatened to fill with tears after witnessing more than a handful of people dabbing their eyes with tissues. When you briefly came close enough to Mr. Holden, he patted Cove on the shoulder. Despite his weepy expression, you could tell that he had the greatest pride for his son. Thank you! Your voice joined in with the noise of the celebration. Anyone that caught your attention, you cheerily yelled out your thanks. After leaving the ceremony in late afternoon, it was time for wedding photos. You and Cove met up with the wedding party and the photographer while the other guests headed over to the reception spot. The excursion was filled with fun and laughter while the photographer set out to get the ideal shots. Cove lovingly held your face, not afraid to show his affection in front of the camera for a change. His thumb brushed lightly across your cheek and then he pressed his forehead to yours. His breath was warm on your skin, and you closed your eyes shut to relish in his love. When he pulled away, you were speechless. But you also had a feeling that was going to be one of the best shots of the lot.